overcome. And I'm not just talking about in relationships. It's in parenting. It's with kids. It's with teachers. It's with churches. It's with politics. It's with religion. It's with everything. I've met a lot of great people, and they don't seem to be volatile relationships, and that's the way life's supposed to be. So I'm not trying to paint this picture that every relationship out there is volatile, but you know, a lot of interactions, whether it be something as simple as the guy getting huffy at the mini mart because I'm talking to the young person behind the counter and telling them what I'm doing, or they're asking questions, or you know, and that's just again little things with me. But just ask yourself every day in life. I've had people already share stories with me about how they took a moment and pointed a thumb, and it caused them to be not indifferent to somebody, and they got rewarded for it with a great story. I've had people talk to me about how they extended themselves instead of being, pointing the thumb at themselves and said, why wouldn't I do this, or why did I do that? I shared a story with you yesterday about somebody that um, related a story about how there were a couple people that didn't, they were very indifferent, and they regret not asking them why. I will tell you this from experience. I have a second mantra that I use, which says you can't have a rational conversation with an irrational person, and that really applies a lot of times. A lot of times we look at things, and if you go back to my earlier YouTube videos on discussions of maybe suicide or a lot of other things, we judge whether we think so or not. We kind of judge from a place of sanity, from a place of a sane mind, a rational mind. And the people in that moment, they're not very rational. Right fighters by nature aren't very rational, and we come across them in every walk of life every day. And that's been kind of a little bit, that gentleman, based upon my experience, trust me, don't approach somebody and ask them why they were indifferent, because what you see so clearly and what I see and what 99 out of 100 people would see is not how they see it. They don't see it as being indifferent. Their mind doesn't see things as clearly as I do. Again, I'm a Dr. Phil fan, and it always, always, always bewilders me how he'll have a guest on stage. Man, do I miss Dr. Phil? I used to watch his reruns. I haven't seen an episode. I don't know if I could stream it or not. Anyway, you learn so much from the show. But he would have a guest on stage, okay, and whatever the topic was, and it wasn't every day, but you might have a young kid that's acting belligerent, um, and the whole audience sees the disrespect and the belligerence, not them, and no matter how much you can try to talk to them about it, they're just not really ever going to see it. You can have that raging alcoholic that, you see their behavior, and you say, is that behavior over the top and unacceptable? And again, 400 people in the studio audience and however many million people watching on TV, almost every person to a man says clearly, but yet that person sits there and says no. So all it kind of does sometimes, especially if you do it in person, and I'm talking from experience now, because I've asked people, why. Um, they feel challenged and defensive and almost want to get, I don't want to say violent, but want to get loud with you, and I certainly don't want it to ever turn violent. So, um, to those folks that run across this indifference, I think the best thing, my suggestion would be to do is not to speak to that one person, because what happens when you say to them, why didn't you? It's a simple question. Hey, can I ask you a question? I just waved, I said hi, why couldn't you have just responded back? Uh, to us, it's such a normal, rational, sane question that you would like to think would open a dialogue, a civil dialogue. Honestly, it just doesn't, because that person feels defensive, attacked, and cornered, and that in itself, right there, is half our problem. Is so many people, when you ask them a question, they right away assume whether it's their own doing, whether they've been beaten down in life, whether it's actually happening. They feel defensive and attacked, and I can speak to this in my professional career. I used to fight so hard for my guys that worked really hard for me, um, that my first inclination a lot of times, and this was early in my career, I hope I changed this later on, but early in my career when they were questioned, I wanted to kind of come to the defense right away, because someone had to stand up for these guys that were working so hard and doing what they did. But um, anyway, so I think the best thing that folks like that can do if we have a situation like that is to have that dialogue in a general way with just other friends, right? And I think what happens is if we talk about it that way with enough people, eventually somebody close to those people that you talked about that walked by and didn't say a word to each other will catch wind of it and hear it, and maybe they'll see it and receive it differently. As an example, my mom and I, we love each other dearly. And there's no doubt we love each other dearly. But for some reason, our conversations don't always go so well. Um, and I'm not sure why that is. I'm sure part of it is clearly me. But my brother can say something to my mom the exact same way I do, and it's received completely differently. And I don't know why that is, but that's like that. I saw that in my professional life, and I don't think that's unique to me and a couple of relationships I've had. Like I said, my mom being one of them. I know she loves me dearly. There's no doubt about that. But ask yourself that sometimes we all have these people in our life that, for whatever reason, something's said, and we have this defensive attitude. Yet somebody else on the street could say something, and it's completely differently. In fact, even in my last volatile relationship, that was a big thing. It was the strangest thing that I used to tease her about it. That this woman would go. I mean, she's a good person, and she would go to the ends of the earth for a complete stranger. But yet, I would just ask a simple question for some understanding, and it was crazy back the other way. Oh, on that note, I wanted to touch base on this earlier. If you guys are still hanging with me, and I hope you are, there's a lot of people that are close with me, okay, that have been following with me, that saw the months and the years and the anguish that they saw that changed me, the one that became a bad person. And that's me becoming a bad person. I wasn't a bad person, but not the guy I am. And I know that when anybody, just like me, if somebody kind of hurts one of my kids, I want to come to my kids' rescue and protect them, and protect them from any kind of bullying or whatever. And that's just the way I am with anybody in my life, not even just my kids. So, but that works both ways. There are people that care deeply about me, about my message, about who I am, that have seen the good me. And I know that there's some people that when they heard my earlier part that somebody extended themselves to come out and get me back on track to Route 30 and come spend some time with me and take a walk with me, that part of them are maybe angry or mad or whatever the case might be. And to you folks out there, I respect your love, I appreciate your love, but I'm a big boy, and it's my decision, and I'm at peace with it. And I'll ask you guys to, I want to get past that person that I was. Don't you become that person on my behalf. Don't let somebody get the better of you. Be happy for me that I put that behind me, and I want you guys to do the same. I know you are, and you know who I'm talking about too. There's a handful of you, and some very, very close to me. Guys, I'm asking you and I'm begging you, don't get caught up in that wanting to protect me, okay? It's just not healthy. It's not. And if I could get past it, and I was, the victim, so to speak, then please, ask yourselves why you can't. And likewise, look, I'm no angel, and I was never perfect to her either. So I'm sure there are people, I don't know if they're watching, probably not, but if anybody's watching that saw any pain or anguish that she went through as a result of me, I'm sure you guys will be wanting to have your skin crawl right now and go, I can't believe she's walking with him, after all they've been through and all he's done to her, because again, that's what those people do. They come and protect their own. So, again, I'll ask you, she's a big girl, and we're in a really good place right now in terms of at least being civil and talking to each other, and understanding each other, that I'll ask you folks to do the same thing. It's not just one-sided with me. Give me the benefit of the doubt. Let her, make her own decisions and so forth. And I do want to say this without saying too much. I always have another phrase I use, which is actions speak. Words to me are some of the most useless stuff in the world. Because how many people out there go off to work every day and I love you, babe, and then they talk bad about their spouse. They do things behind their spouse's back. They, whatever. So I've always been one about action, and that was one of my biggest challenges, even in that relationship. But after many months and years of saying, hey, can we try to work on this with action? I think that's part of what my leaving and this and the kind of not reconciliation, but the coming to terms, the coming to peace with things, has done. I think it took the razor blades that were spinning inside of her for literally 30 years now. When you talk about her history, and she's kind of seen the light, and via action is doing something about it for her. And as a friend, that makes me very, very happy and proud of somebody, because so many people don't go and get the help that they need and they deserve. And you probably have to ask yourselves that. How many people are in your life that would benefit from whatever it might be, stopping drinking, or if they're into drugs and stopping drugs, or if they have anger issues, going and speaking to somebody that could help them with their anger issues, or if they have other whatever insecurity or anxiety or separation or low self-esteem. How many people would benefit by owning it and talking about it? And that's half the problem. That person with low self-esteem, and I'm going to point the finger at me right now because this was me for many years. I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm 6'4", and something about height that when you walk into a room, it just has a presence. But I would walk into a room and people, I mean, part of it was I played pretend. A lot of us play pretend out there. So I would play pretend and carry myself as this guy that's got all my shit together and had, I don't want to say swagger. I never think I had swagger, but carry myself like I had it all together and things were good, and I got this, and weakness or insecurity is somebody else's problem. When the truth of the matter was inside, I guarantee you I was the most insecure person in that room. And I don't mean insecure in a jealous rage kind of lunatic way, but just insecure with who I was, what I wanted to be, not really knowing who I was. But it took owning that. Like I said, it'll take that alcoholic to own it. It'll take that person with low self-esteem or with anger issues or whatever to own it, to say, look, I have this. If you don't have that, if you don't own that you have it, all you're doing is playing pretend for the rest of the world, and it'll never get better. So, right now, ask yourselves, how many of you are that person? How many of you know somebody that's person? And again, that's kind of back to pointing the thumb. You need to be able to know and own who you are to get yourself to a better place. If you're in denial about who you are the whole time and you want to play pretend, the world can only help you by what you portray, right? I had an example of somebody I knew that was, I don't know, I'm just rambling today, but it's doing good for me. So if you guys are tuned out by now, I get it. This is just kind of helping me kind of decompress as the daylight comes up behind me. Not sunshine, but daylight anyway. But I had this person that had a drinking problem, and it was funny. People care, so they would, periodically say, "Hey, how's that going?" And they were embarrassed to admit that it wasn't going well. So what they would do is they would say, "No, man, it's going great." So they pretended, and the other folks that wanted to help couldn't have helped any more than the information you're given, right? So if they're being told, hey, everything's great and I haven't touched a drink in 2 months, then that's great. They're supportive, they pat you on the back, and they give you some false accolades that aren't really deserved. And that person in a moment gets high and feels good about themselves as, wow, I got them fooled. So if that person isn't come clean and honest with who they are, they're never going to be able to heal and get the help or improve and so forth. And maybe that's what these videos are for me, my own way of healing and improving. So guys, I did want to do something. I'm running long today, so this is going to be a 3-parter, but I know people are tuned out. I'm going to do another quick one that I'm going to post first. So actually, when I publish these things, I can schedule them. That's what I'm going to do. Actually, I can't schedule the YouTubes. So I'm going to do one first, and then I'm going to play these. This is almost going to be a three-parter, believe it or not. It looks like I'm running over 30 minutes here. So